there's at least one clock in the room that says it's 5:30, so please rise for the national anthem. Go. Pledge of Allegiance. That was close. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the February 4th business meeting of the Faribault School Board. Mr. Clerk, will you determine if we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum, 7 in attendance, all 7 members are in attendance.
Perfect, thank you. We will approve the agenda, and there is a change. And we would like to move items 9C and D, the Lincoln Elementary Goals Update and the 9th Grade Academy Update, and we will move those up to the recognition area. Oops, I'm sorry. So they will now become, we'll put them under items 4. And we'll start with the 7th grade AVID when we go there, and then when we're done with F, Scott Leonard, we will move to the 2 building reports. And they're certainly welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting if you like. But we'll move you up so that you can move on to other things if you like. All right, given that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, with those changes, the agenda's been approved. So we'll move right into community comment. Seeing none, we will go to recognition, 7th grade AVID program. Matt, you going to help us with that?
Yep, we're ready to go. And mic's on. Great. Welcome, new school board members. My first meeting here along with you guys. So congratulations. Thanks for being here. In the interest of compartmentalizing here, we've got a nice backlog of awesome things our students did during the holiday break. So we'll call up at this time 7th grade AVID, the Falcons for Change, and the FHS Student Council members that are here. You guys can all just stand right over there. Okay, so for these first 3 groups, for 7th grade AVID, for the 2nd year in a row, 7th grade AVID students participated in a service learning project in which they made blankets, 9 blankets, to donate to Roots House of Hope here in Faribault. This project helped the students learn about different ways they can help the community and the importance of helping others. It also required them to work together as a team to create the blankets. So that was the 7th grade AVID's holiday project back in December. And the Falcons for Change group, this December, Falcons for Change collected donations from local businesses and held fundraisers at the middle school for its Santals and Smiles program. The group raised over $4,800 that it used to shop for toys, as well as essential items for 12 local families that were in need this holiday season. And then for the FHS Student Council, through admission to the Sadie Hawkins dance and other activities, this high school student group raised $8,100 for Toys for Tots. And now we'll bring up our 2 DECA district champions. In January, Faribault High School's DECA program sent 75 students to the District 1 event in Owatonna and advanced 40 to the state competition. 16 of those students finished as runners-up in their competitions, and 2, Madeline Way and Erica Johnsrud, won gold medals as district champions. These 2 won for their integrated marketing plan they put together that revolved around planning a festival, and each of them qualified for state in 3 events.
Right.
Good topic.
And then last but not least, we've got two staff members, Julie Ewell and Scott Lanier. Come up, please. Scott couldn't be here. A couple of really great things these two staff members did here at the end of 2018. After returning from summer break in August, Jefferson Principal Secretary Julie Ewell read an email about the Outstate Supplies Initiative program through Kids in Needs Resource Center. The program helped classrooms replenish school supplies that families may not be able to afford. For the first time this year, the Kids in Need Resource Center extended its offerings to Minnesota high schools beyond the metro area. Julie sent in a request for the supplies, and in December, Jefferson received 21 boxes of new school supplies, one for each kindergarten through 5th grade classroom at the school. Inside each box was enough supplies for 30 students. And Scott, in December, 12 Consulting Group of Minneapolis offered 12 $1,000 donations as part of its 12 Days of Holiday Giving initiative. Scott nominated Jefferson for the program, and the school was chosen as one of the 12 recipients of the donation. A group from 12 Consulting Group came to Jefferson and handed out $1,000 worth of hats, boots, and gloves for students.
Great job.
Just in case I went too fast, community comment, I didn't give anybody much time. Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to Lincoln Elementary.
And does Drew put the PowerPoint up, or?
He's right back. He's getting there.
He can catch up to us. But to start out with, we presented to you goals in October. And so we wanted to give a little bit of an update on how things are going at Lincoln since then.
They're in the back one too, Brad. Yep.
There we go.
Yep, there.
They're surrounded.
So we just keep going.
You bet.
All right, Drew, keep up with me. Next slide talks about our, oh, very good. Oh, which one? Right arrow or left arrow? Thank you. Right arrow, okay, thank you. First one, it's pretty, at this point, we don't have much to update on our MCA goals. It stays the same. We get the test scores later on in the school year, but this is, of course, something that we're striving towards to make gains on. And some of the strategies then are more important at this point of the year, so we'll get to some of those. Reading strategies, as we talked about, August we have a data retreat. That was August 16th. That's our site team goes, meets with our curriculum director, a few others, and do a root cause data analysis, looking at that, and then from that figure out some of the things that we're going to do throughout the course of the year. Of course, last year we were trained in the collaborative inquiry model, so we continue to use that to guide through that process. Also, you can see utilizing the viewpoint data, we have a lot of data over the last decade or so, and the information is very important, especially the testing that happens in the fall gives us an idea of where students are at. Teachers use that twice a month. And this is one thing where it's not the end of it all, so the data is very useful, but we also use common assessments, and those are ongoing throughout the course of a good teaching cycle. What we have done, though, is we've identified in the viewpoint students that are 5 to 8 points below proficiency, and we ask teachers to target those students in the fall and see how they're progressing, as well as all other students, okay? And then, of course, we use a collaborative inquiry model, and that is predict, go visual, observe, infer, question. Okay. Here we go. This thing I think you'll find more interesting. I certainly do. You can look at some other stuff, and we've done a lot of work with that. The literacy coaching is something that was started last year. A grant was written, and we have Bree Isaacson, who I consider a master teacher at Lincoln, that is our literacy coach. She has great connections with all the teachers in the building. And I asked her to write down just a little bit of a synopsis of what she's doing in the building. And I have that here for you. First part of it was teacher-to-teacher collaboration. That's what she's working on. In her role as a literacy coach, it says to make an impact on students, and that is why I started doing the PD, the professional development. So Bree has a real passion for this. Last year, in the spring of the year, she came to me with an idea to go get some PD. It was a 3-day trip to Boston. Okay, so it was something based on literacy. It got her ignited, on fire about what was happening in our district. She came back with the ideas, and from that, applied for the coaching position, was accepted, and she's been making some tremendous gains as well. Does modeling. The last part is getting students engaged. A big part of what she's doing, the two areas are getting improving student engagement and working to ensure that teachers are teaching the standards and using learning targets that are centered on that. Okay. Next part then, I asked the teachers then to let me know how things were going with the literacy coaching. And they provided me some feedback from one of those 2 PLC meetings I have each month. Kindergarten, if you go through kindergarten through 5th grade, and if you look at what's happening with there, each one of them highlights student engagement as something Bree is working on with it. Student engagement, we know that is going to help have an impact on student achievement throughout with reading and math. Next part talks about 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Once again, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but the focal point of that thing, student engagement. Bree has a cycle that she goes around and is meeting with each and every classroom teacher as well as the support staff to work on good teaching practices, research teaching practices. Okay, academic, our next one is mathematics. And once again, we'll report out on that when that data is available in the spring. The next part here is some of the strategies, similar, but with this one, we had a math day training. That was November 5th. Math curriculum is brand new to us. And if you talk to a kindergarten teacher, the fun part about this for me has been, if you go talk to Carrie Jo Eitenbogard in her classroom, she will say, I am so excited. Look what's happening in the kindergarten. We're doing some things that we've never done before. In fact, what she did last spring was took her class of kindergartners, went down and challenged the 1st grade to a contest. Who can add the best? Guess who won? Kindergarten. So there's some good things happening in the kindergarten, good things happening with my math. This PD, another significant thing was we have these risks that say every Falcon every day. We had paraprofessionals that went to this training, right? Very important. We had paraprofessionals walking out of there saying, I can't believe how many components there are to a good lesson. They were really impressed with the work that went into things that the grade level teachers are working on. Okay, I can give you one example of that. A good example, 4th grade classroom, the teachers get together and they say, in a math lesson, we will assess all the kids Thursday afternoon in a math concept. Okay, Thursday afternoon. That afternoon, they're able to take the kids that really have it firmly proficient in that concept, and they will provide a mini lesson to them so that the following day, that group of kids can go off and accelerate their learning, okay, enhancement stuff. The other group of kids will go off and get the same mini lesson, a little bit thicker for them, so they can get that concept, and then they break the class down into groups so that all kids can learn at their level. It's pretty cool when you see it in action. Okay, we also had, just to report out, we had a para-math night, and that happened at Jefferson Elementary School as part of the community school. We're gonna do it at Lincoln. It seemed to work out better to have it at Jefferson, and connected with those through the community school concept. Additional strategies, at Lincoln, one of the things that we're working on was parent involvement, so we initiated the Greet Your Teacher. That was the first year of that. It was very successful. We're planning to do that next year. We have parent-teacher conferences coming up this week, and we also have report cards that were sent home based on grad standards. Okay.
You want to briefly touch on the language line, Brad?
Oh, language line. Language line was very successful this year for the conferences. In the past, we would spend a lot of time coordinating conferences to have liaisons available to interpret for the conferences, Somali, Spanish, other different languages. This year, Sam came over, gave the entire staff a training on using the language line, including myself. Very beneficial, very easy to use. Teachers used it at conferences and they loved it. So they could get direct communication with the parent. The parent would come in, they'd go on the language line, usually took about 1 minute to get connected. A person in that language would come on, and it would be a direct connection, parent to teacher. So I've used that a few times. It's been really nice. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, and just another footnote on that. Sam says it saved him anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 because now they don't have to contract other cultural liaisons to come in and do that. So that's been an effective.
And I think the better part of it is there's just a little better connection if you're not working through another person with this. I know the liaisons were concerned about this, but I think it's been terrific. Teachers, the feedback from them is it's been excellent. Okay. And then attendance is always big. So we keep track data on that. And this last year we had 95% so far to date. This was through December, 95.27. So we're where we want to be. This does not include the last little bit of the flu season. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Mr. Palmer, can I ask real quick? Do you have any idea what that was a year ago? What your attendance was?
95
What?
overall.
No, in 2017.
Yeah.
By this date, I don't have
No,
that
no.
with me. I think it might have been 95.26. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. Okay, some of the strategies we're using, this might seem very simple, and I talked about this in October, but when you see it in action, it's really kind of nice. So there is no 5 or 6 year old out there that comes to school late because of their own, a problem of their own. So when the students and parents, when they come into school, what we used to tell them was, you're late, here's your tardy slip, now you can go to class, and now we say, welcome, we're glad you're here. Here's your slip to get down to your classroom, and we have breakfast available if they need it, or if they're within the 8:15 time period, they go down and get their breakfast, and off they go. So it's just a little bit of a wrinkle on that. I think it's been, it's nice to see though, it's a nice change. And I'll give Mr. Fox credit for that. Mr. Fox came to me with that idea. He got somewhere, presented it to me, and within a week we were able to start that. Next part was office referrals, and this includes referrals from the classroom, playground, and bus. The bus things, we've taken over that more, so we still work with the bus company in this, Mike Isaacson, but the schools have a little bit more involvement in that, so that's been a factor in some of our data. But office referrals last year, we were from last year to this year, September, October, we're actually down 7 office referrals in September, is down 7 October. November, December, it increased. There's a number of variables that influence that. Some of those are kids moving into the district. There's a lot of different variables that can enter into that, but overall there has been a decrease. We're not to the percentage that we want, but in some cases it's okay. My contention is We want students getting what they need. We want the classroom teacher to be engaged with everybody in the classroom learning, not taking 10, 15, 20 minutes out of their day to untangle something. That's better coming to myself for the responsive classroom. We have a responsive classroom para that kids can come to, or myself, so that students are engaged in what's happening. The teacher's there to teach, and we're there to support that effort. Okay. And then we have the PBIS strategies that we're working throughout the building. We call it CARES. That's our acronym. And of course, we have that in place the last couple of years. There's a committee that reviews that in the summer. They make recommendations throughout the building. And if you come to Lincoln and walk through the halls, you'll see all kinds of reminders of how you're supposed to walk, how you're supposed to conduct yourself, how your volume should be. And they're great reminders, especially for the teachers. So keeps us all on track. And we, of course, go over that in the fall with all of the teachers, and it's reviewed. The good thing is we have a CARES committee that meets once every month. They meet, review the data from the building, and then they come to the faculty meeting right after. So the first half hour is a building committee meeting. They come straight to the faculty meeting, give us 1 or 2 suggestions of some things that they see from the data of what we can all work on collectively. I think that's been great. So you just get 1 or 2 specific strategies to help out. Okay, Drew, thank you for this. And any questions on what's happening at Lincoln Elementary School?
I do have a question about your Greet Your Teacher.
Yes.
How have you seen improved parent engagement as a result of those 2 days that you've invested?
How do I see improved engagement? I would say that you never have a second chance to make a first impression. So during the way conferences or open house used to go was there'd be a number of people coming in and handing you boxes of Kleenex and school supplies, and you're filling out a desk, and there's just a whole lot going on. With this system, it's like the magic of teaching, connection, one connection at a time. You can take a family in, and we've got some time collectively as a Greet Your Teacher, so I can give you my individual attention, for a short period of time. I think that first impression is really strong and carries over.
And have you gotten feedback from parents about that?
Positive, yes. I was kind of concerned going into it, quite honestly. I didn't think we'd get over 50% participation, and we had like 90-some%. It was.
And I think the numbers at Jefferson were similarly high. So
I think we're 1% higher.
Oh, okay. That was right after the parade
0.27.
situation. I remember that.
I could be wrong, but I'm sure. That's going to probably remind me.
Thanks.
But I think there are some very positive outcomes. Some of those you can equate to a number, and some it's a feel. I think a parent gets a really good feel if they've got your attention in that time.
Thanks.
All right. With that, I give you the middle school or high school. Thank you.
Good,
Thank you.
Thank you.
9th grade academy.
Good evening, everybody. How we doing? Welcome to all our new school board members. I think I've had an opportunity to meet each of you at the high school. Congratulations. We're happy to have you on board. It feels like yesterday, but about a year ago we stood up here and we're looking at some first semester data. I think we reported at quarters and then again at the semester. And this year we waited here to take a peek at some of our semester data. Oh, I don't know where, there it is. And so we're happy to present that to you guys today. We were really pleased with how the academy went last year. And so we've expanded on that and have made some changes and looked at some things that we can continue to get better at. It's been a really interesting few months as I've learned that the academy has become quite a bit more than just a program we run at the high school. We're doing a lot of work with T&L and getting support from Ryan. We're working very closely with the middle school. We have Heidi Onus and integration I mean, I'm taking calls from Margaret Gare in terms of kids that might be benefited from the academy. So across the district, we know that it's making an impact, and that really excites us and fuels us in our work. It's a little harder to see. I just wanted to put the teachers up here and recognize them, and very fortunately, we would have had all of them here today. One of our members had a family emergency, and the other one had a sick wife. But these are the people, and I'll introduce them here in a second, that are the heart and the soul and the rocks of the academy. They are what make this thing tick day in and day out, and so they absolutely deserve some recognition. And our English teacher here tonight is Elizabeth Daniels. Our special education teacher inside the academy is Stacy Fox, and then Bethany Fuller, who is one of our, we brought on this year as one of our 2 academic specialists. Peter Tenaglia, I'm sure you guys know the name Tenaglia. He is our history teacher, and then Denise Mesta is also on board, working very closely with Bethany as one of our academic specialists. And so they work on kind of in that seminar time where they're working on this specific interventions with kids, getting them organized, helping make sure that they're staying caught up in school. I'll just take a second here. This was kind of cool. I was actually sitting on my phone one night, and Ms. Daniels, so this was right at the end of the semester, right? The emotions are really high for kids, and a lot of times they don't reach out to teachers to say, hey, thanks for that extra few hours you put in to help me pass the class. The one that came in was from Ms. Daniels, to Ms. Daniels, through Schoology. It says, thanks for helping me, Ms. Daniels, with the essay. It boosted my grade up to a B-. I hope you're proud of me because I am. So as I sat on my couch and read that night, it's just those testimonies from kids that really go a long way. And then another one there, I'll let you guys read that. That was from a student in Mr. Stenross's science class. So the first piece of data we're looking at tonight, and just to kind of make this, to simplify this as much as I can, the green is going to be, this is this current year's academy class. So the green is what we're looking at how they performed last year as 8th graders in the middle school, and the orange is how they're performing this year as high schoolers. Keep in mind, it's kind of hard to track because at the middle school they have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, whereas at the high school, we really focus on the semesters. That's the big game changer for us. So you can see that in quarter 2, there was 117 total Fs distributed. That's all classes for our current academy class. And then what I like to do is actually look at, this is to me how they ended at the middle school, and this is how they're ending at the high school, at least semester 1. So there's been a significant decrease in the total number of Fs across all classes that were distributed amongst 53 academy students. Any questions on that slide here? Okay. This next one is actually not the total number of Fs that were distributed, but the total number of students that have failed 1 or more classes. And this is, again, across all of their classes. So it includes the English, the science, and the social studies inside of the academy, and then it includes whatever 3 classes that they're taking outside of the academy. And so you'll see here that, again, we're seeing some significant growth with our kids. 43 kids have failed a class or more, and that does not come as a surprise. We identify students in the academy based on students who have failed. But, you know, we've taken calls from administrators at the middle school, and you know, I'll talk a little bit about the one the call I took from Margaret, where it's this kid's grades aren't super great, but he needs the academy. He needs that connection. He needs a really, really strong relationship with someone. And when you look at those individual stories with how kids are doing, it's exciting to see, and you can't see it in the data up here, how they're going from maybe all Ds and all Cs and something that wouldn't be flagged on our radar, but we know that they're having a hard time at home, to building that connection with them and helping them achieve some A's and some B's, and overall doing quite a bit better. But we were really pleased to see 17 total students with 1 or more Fs. So this is the data that we looked at, I call this kind of the slide that talks really specifically about the impact that the academy is making. So this is the total number of failing grades that are distributed within academy classes. So we're looking at social studies, English, and science. And you're seeing that in quarter 2, there were 68 total Fs that were distributed. At the end of this semester, the academy only gave 2 Fs. And that was actually for the same student. So one student amongst 53 failed 1 or more classes after semester 1 of the academy. So that was really, really promising for us. We were excited to see that data, and we're hoping to expand on that, continue with that trajectory into second semester. One piece that we know the research shows is that the attendance has a strong correlation with their academics. The total number of sick days, we look at how many, attendance is really hard to look at because kids can be out for a million different reasons. But a lot of times they tell their parents, I'm sick, and that's what prevents them from going to school. So the total number of sick days in semester 1 for our middle schoolers was 136, and now it's down to 108. So we're happy that that number's decreased. We want to continue to lower that number. It's interesting, actually, though, that you're going to see that our tardies have actually increased. We're working on that. We have some plans in place to ensure that our kids are getting to class on time. But I think it is important to note that the middle school does operate on a different schedule. So for a few days of the week, the middle school's in a block schedule. So, and the high school never has that. So there are actually more classes for an academy kid to miss at the high school than there is the middle school. And the last piece of data here is the behavior. So in 2017 at middle school, there was a total in the first semester of 11 suspensions, and that resulted in 22 total days of suspension amongst those kids. In our first semester with these kids, there was a total of 3 suspensions, and that resulted in a total of 10 days. And so if you're doing the math here, you're seeing that, you know, we still have 10 total days. A couple of those were actually longer suspensions, which we weren't proud of, but we're continuing to work on that. We're happy to see the growth in terms of discipline. It does not include referrals. This is just suspensions and days out of school, which make the biggest impact on how kids do academically. So the next piece here, I'm going to hand over to Stacy Fox, who's kind of been pushing the lead here on what we're implementing as an intervention model, and I'll let her talk a little bit about that right now.
All right. Thank you so much for having me to explain how we're really working with literacy in our academy. We noticed across the board with students, particularly in the academy, that their reading levels were not where we wanted them to be. Our average is right around a grade 4 reading level, and if they're 9th graders, that's significantly behind where we want them to be. So we decided to actively address this. At the beginning of the year, myself and the academic specialist tested every student in the academy with the qualitative reading assessment. It's different from the MCAs because the answers are open-ended and it eliminates that opportunity for students to guess an answer. And so we're really looking at a few different aspects of their ability to read. First, we look at word recognition, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. And studies show that reading fluency can really impact reading comprehension. And from this data, we were able to look at where kids were in each area, and we decided to address reading fluency and reading comprehension. Now, some students only needed to work on the reading comprehension, but we do have some groups of students who have lower fluency than we had hoped for, so we're working both with reading fluency and reading comprehension in an effort to increase their ability to access their content. Because as we know, by the time you get to middle school and the high school, you're not so much learning to read anymore as reading to learn. And so now we're doing small group tier 2 and tier 3 interventions where I and one of the academic specialists pull about 3 to 4 students out during our seminar time and work with them in small group instruction to increase their reading skills. Additionally, I work within the content classrooms and I bring in literacy interventions at the tier 1 level And the content teachers also do this on their own with vocabulary instruction. And I've done a lot with literacy instruction within the content. So for instance, a lot of times in the history class, I've brought in primary reading sources, so we're still reading the history, but I'm including reading strategies that students can use in the content and showing that it is applicable in the content. This is something you can use, not just in the academy and not just in 9th grade, but down the road. In an effort to increase their ability to connect with the text, engage in the text, and thus understand the text.
And I'll just very quickly comment on that. Thank you, Stacy. This team has done some of the most incredible work that I've seen, especially after the QRI assessment. This is what, when I talk about kind of expanding on what the Academy is doing, I stood in front of you guys a year ago, our team did, and we talked about, we want to decrease the number of failures. We want kids to pass more classes. And then after a year, we started saying, hey, we did a really good job at this, but what's next? And so when we dig into the data, we find out that it's because our kids are struggling to read. So if we help increase their comprehension and their fluency, they're going to be able to understand more things in class. And we're hoping that that's going to be a direction that leads to some positive results here in the next few years.
So I wanted to talk to you guys today about why we feel like we're being successful and seeing the data that you guys have seen today. And the first part of that is well, I guess it was this time last year, really, we were given the opportunity to try out standards-based grading within the academy, and given the chance to kind of see how that would work for our classes, as well as how we could make that compatible with our already existing Faribault High School grading system. And so first it kind of started with the actual grading system itself and what that would look like for us. And it really, we found, ended up transforming everything about our classrooms. It's really changed our instruction. It's made it a lot more focused. I think we feel more confident as teachers with what we're doing, and the formative assessments that we're having our kids work with, and the validity of those, as well as the validity of the summative assessments that they're getting, and if they're quality summative assessments, and really achieving the goals that we have for them. It also has made us look at the results that we're getting more closely, and really given us the chance to do some reassessments with our kids, which looks a little bit different in each one of our classrooms, science, history, and English. For example, last semester, my students wrote an essay for me, and I graded them, and the essays covered 4 different standards, 2 writing standards and 2 language standards, and I looked at the results and thought, they can do better than this. I wasn't totally happy with it as a teacher, and because of the manpower that we have in the classroom with the co-teacher and our co-teachers and our academic specialists, we were able to one-on-one conference with every single one of the academy kids about their essays. We sat down with them and read their essay out loud to them, which was pretty enlightening for them, and gave them the chance to revise their essays. And out of the 53 students, I graded 36 essay revisions. 36 students took the opportunity to revise their essays. And out of those students, they either were able to score higher on at least one of the standards, some of those students scoring higher on all 4 of the standards that essay was graded on. And so that was really encouraging to see, and just a really cool way for us to see success in our classrooms. The second thing is that we have a common prep time. And once a week, we use that time to meet as really what we're kind of considering a PLC. And we use that time to plan interventions for our students, or discuss the interventions that are in place, the success that we're seeing with them, or other things that we need to be doing. We talk about bright spots with our kids, the successes that we're seeing, as well as some of the struggles that we're having. We talk about the needs that they have behaviorally, socially, emotionally, academically, and make plans together. We bounce ideas off each other all the time. We've done some interdisciplinary planning. I've gone into Mr. Tenaglia's class and done some things, and he's come into my class and done some history things with the English topics that we're doing. And because we have that time together, we just really get to be creative and innovative, and that's been really fun and really valuable. I think that is probably some of the most valuable time that I have every single week is that academy time. I think we all really look forward to it. And really those two things, that standards-based approach to our classroom as well as that PLC time really is what helps build those relationships in the academy, which is probably kind of the icing on the cake for why we've been successful. Those relationships that we have with each other as peers and staff in the academy, I think that we have a lot of trust with each other, and we can be very candid and honest, and so it helps us grow as educators. And then I think our kids see those relationships too. They know that we trust each other, and these kids can be some of those students who are hard to gain trust with sometimes. And we have found a lot of different ways to connect with them, and if they don't have a really good relationship with all of the teachers in the academy, there's at least one of us I think we can confidently say that each of those students has found a good connection with. I think, I know Mr. Sage has had a few students pop into his office this year and say, I don't think I want to be in the academy. These teachers are really riding me, and this is really tough, and I don't think I want to be in Mrs. Daniels' class anymore. I don't think I want to be in Mr. Tenaglia's class anymore. And he gets to sit there and say, like, okay, let's take a look at your grades. Let's look at middle school and see how things were going. And, oh, look, I think you're passing your classes. This is making a difference. And I think every single one of those kids has said, oh, okay, I guess I'll stay. I guess these teachers are all right, so.
So that's all we have for you guys today. I want to thank, and we'll open it up for questions. I first want to thank you for your support over the last year and a half now. We can't do this without you. We're committed to continuing to expand on the success of the academy and try new things. We have an administrative team, Mr. Benty and Mr. Peck, who are very, very supportive of what we do and allow us to try new things like standards-based grading, or allowing for reassessments, and our data is very promising with that. So we'll continue to look into those things, but I want to open it up for any questions that you guys may have on this data.
Great job, congratulations. I think 3 of us that are still on the board when this got implemented. Speaking just for me, but these are the results that we had hoped for, probably better than we had hoped for. We've seen other places and results, and this is very similar, and just very, very excited for you. And for the students, the one question I have is anybody familiar with something like this in the 8th grade level? Because I see these results and I say, why don't we start this now at the 8th grade level? I get it, there's a level of money tied to it, there's a level of putting all this in there, but there's dramatic improvement here from 8th to 9th grade, and I get it, there's change from a different building and all that stuff, but I'd love to hear something in the future on something like this in the 8th grade level. But just hats off to you, the whole team, whoever's not here, Mr. Benty, Mr. Peck, all of you that are involved. Ms. Onis, great job.
And I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of Todd and Jamie, but I do think that the academy is a model that we're looking at to see what works. And obviously, there's pieces of the academy that are kind of specific and tailored to the high school and would work within a high school that might be more difficult to implement within a middle school. But I definitely think that over the next year or 2 years, we're going to be looking and seeing, okay, what pieces of this can we implement not only in 9th grade, but in 10th grade and 11th grade and 12th grade, so that we continue to see success.
I think I missed how many students are enrolled in the academy?
53. And that number, Carolyn, has actually, last year we set it and it was fixed, and it was closer to 60. This year we wanted to bring it down just a little bit, and rather than saying that kids can't come in and out, we've been a little bit more flexible with that. It's hard because the academy is so specific to what they're doing every day, and it's built around relationships. But we have had a process this year now where 3 or 4 different kids, when we lose a kid, we definitely are looking to bring in a kid and help them. And we've been able to do that this year.
And they transition in successfully in the middle of the year then? Is that how that works?
I would say I don't know if I would say successfully quite yet, because we've had kids transitioning up until just a few weeks ago. We probably will put the hold on it at this point. I don't know if we're going to let anyone in past this, but it's pretty smooth. When they come in, we have our academic specialists and Ms. Fox kind of it's like 3 staff watching over them very, very closely and calling home and making sure that they feel welcome at home and that they have someone to connect with.
I would say, if I can just add on to that, from the teacher's perspective and working with those kids, the ones that we have transitioned in this year, I think we've made a pretty smooth transition with, and we try to work with the teachers that they had ahead of time before to make sure we're knowing what they're coming in with and kind of what their experience was in that classroom before they come into us, what content they had a handle on or didn't have a handle on. And so our relationships outside of the academy, I think, too, have been a benefit to making those transitions smoother.
Can I ask a question? I also am really happy to hear the results of your work. Good job. Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about what next year will look like for these students and what the transition from this program to 10th grade at the high school will look like?
Yeah, that I would say that that's something that's very much a work in progress. We're tracking some of the data, actually, because this is the second year of implementation. We're tracking some of the data. We have a class that we can look at that are now 10th graders. And the actual number of students who have failed one class or more has actually stayed the same. It's around 12. That's great. The problem is that they're failing more classes, so our total number of Fs went up. We've looked into things like what we actually currently have all of our seminar kids in 2 different homerooms working, so they're all together. It's kind of that feel, but it's very different because what they're doing in academic seminar is not the same as homeroom. So that's something that Mr. Benty and myself are having weekly conversations about right now to brainstorm and figure out, where can we get some funding and how can we continue this support? Because they have a lot in 9th grade, and that's, to be honest with you, that's why we see such great results. But then when they go off into 10th grade, we need some sort of gradual release. I would say probably one of the biggest components is we work very closely with Ms. Onus. She comes in and we talk, I don't know how many, Heidi on the spot, how many kids did we get into AVID from last year's 9th grade academy class? So yeah, 10 of 60, so roughly a sixth. I've had 2 students from this year's academy class approach me in the last week saying, how do I get into AVID? So that's another piece that helps us transition.
Can you share what you have shared about how you greet students that are sent to the office for disciplinary reasons?
How I greet them?
Yeah. Wasn't that you on Facebook?
It was Sean.
Was that Sean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep. It's pretty cool.
Can you share that, Sean?
Come on up, Mr. Pack. I absolutely love more than anyone putting him on the spot. So I do appreciate this.
Well, I got the haircuts mixed up, I guess.
So once in a while, we'll have random thoughts, and it used to be those random thoughts just kicked around in our head. Now we have a little bit further on social media, right? So I think what you're referring to is the tweet that I sent out a few days back about when a student comes to the main office, they're there for a reason. They're there because they messed up, right? They made a mistake. But we try to maintain that student's dignity at all times, right? So we greet them with a smile and a handshake and a how's life, and then we get down to what happened in the classroom. A lot of times if we come at them right away with a bunch of grief, we don't end up getting the result that we want because we're really needing to change, right? So that was a random thought that was came to mind, something that all of us in the office try to embody every single day. So I just gave it a call.
Sure. Thank you. I didn't want to put you on the spot. Sorry I got angry.
And now what he's going to say is, I'm going to get 10 more followers on Twitter tonight.
I suspect that gets at the reason why it's been successful. And I'd just like to comment, one of the rules about when you have a problem, do something. And that's what you've chosen to do, and we thank you for that and need to support that. The other thing is the reason you're successful is you're connecting with students on a level that they haven't been able to achieve other places. And that's the reason why a lot of schools are going to academies across their whole school based on interest. Could be a science academy and those types of things. But breaking larger units into smaller units where people know each other, understand each other, and respect each other. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Next item is item 5, the consent agenda. These items are approved by one motion unless a board member requests separate action. And maybe the humming will stop now. Okay. So, anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? No, there can't be on this one. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Retirements. Is there a motion to consider retirements this evening?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
We have retirement of Ginger Burns, special ed paraprofessional, Roosevelt Elementary most recently, after 30 years in the district. Any discussion? Hearing none, is all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 7-0. Next item is item 7, finance. And the minutes are in there, and we are going to get a report. Jennifer is absent this evening, so welcome.
Thank you. Since I'm fairly new to this seat, I'll introduce myself. I'm Pam Zahn. I'm the controller for the district, so I work closely with Jennifer. So she has asked me to represent our department for the Finance Committee meeting that was held on the 22nd, and also to discuss the revised budget. So I don't know how we move forward.
I think, John, just if you have questions, go ahead and ask Pam, and we just keep on moving forward.
Okay, we'll take each item as they are listed here. Rice County, okay. Let's just not ask, okay, I guess we better do this. Is there a motion to consider the Rice County Purchase of Services Agreement?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. High school assistant principal position. Is there a motion to consider this?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I will just say that at the Finance Committee, we talked at length about this, and Anne Marie was there as well, and certainly from back to the connection piece that we just saw in the 9th grade academy, that was one of the big selling points of this position. I think the additional funding is coming from community education. That you can certainly give your thoughts, but it was the entire Finance Committee supported this.
I would just agree. The community members present as well thought it was a great proposal, so thank you.
Okay, and as I understand it, along with additional funding for the position come additional duties for the person as well. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Is there a motion to consider McKinley Early Childhood Center paraprofessional proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 4, the revised budget for 18-19, and is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I'll start this discussion. I just want to, and certainly ask Pam for more specifics within that. If you look at the document with the revised budget, one thing to note is that we do have a little bit better projection of our fund balance. Rather than going down about $850,000, down to $633. But it is a negative number that we're going to have to deal with this spring. Otherwise, on the revised budget, if you have any questions, you can direct those to Pam. She has that all ironed out. I think we try to really be as clear as possible in the summary to help you out, to match those numbers up to make sure you know where they went.
And typically, we revise the budget one time, and then, of course, in June, present the final results of any adjustments in there.
We've done it a variety of ways. In the last couple of years, we haven't approved a revised budget. We've just looked at the revised budget, and then we eventually approve it in May. I think both Pam and Jennifer would prefer us approving this revised budget now so we can go through these numbers and move forward with them.
So we wanted to have an accurate as possible picture of what 18-19 was going to end at, so as we move into budgeting for FY 19-20.
I think it was 683,000, and that number doesn't matter actually until the auditors approve the final one sometime next fall.
Right, negative 633, but you're right.
33.
Once we get the audit, that's the real number.
That's the real number, yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 7-0. Resolution 1913, providing for a public hearing to consider granting a property tax abatement, and this is a resolution. Is there a motion to consider this?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. This is for the parking lots, right?
That's correct, yep.
Why do we have to have a tax abatement for school-owned land?
It's part of a law that's now in for, if we want to, as a board, approve a tax levy for us to work on parking lots specifically, we can now do that. And so they call it an abatement. It's really just remodeling the parking lots or adding to each of the parking lots that we have out there. So the parking lots that are covered are Jefferson, Lincoln, the Bruce Smith Field, and a couple other miscellaneous things. But
So Todd, correct me, probably in November or December, you brought this to us.
December.
It was brought to us and we did some due diligence and further study and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
So then this is the actual acting upon.
yes, this is the actual document that says we can go ahead and move forward with a tax abatement, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Being a resolution, it's been moved and seconded to consider. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
John Curry.
Aye.
Jason Engbrand.
Aye.
Yvette Martheller.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway.
Aye.
Chad Wolf. Aye. Mr. Chair, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, the budget. The enrollment report is attached. Is there a motion to consider? This is a report. We don't have to vote on it. Anybody want to comment on the December enrollment report?
I will point out that we are still, we did lose some students in December from November, but we are still projected to exceed what we originally projected for the preliminary budget. So we had budgeted 3,573, and right now, based on the average over the last 4 months, our projected total ADM looks to be 3,605. So, and then looking at it from a different perspective, just from straight numbers, I believe that we're still looking to beat the original projected number by 16 ADM. So in both scenarios, we're still looking to beat those numbers.
Todd, question for you. Every student that leaves, do the building leaders reach out to their families and do any follow-up as they're leaving?
They do, and we asked for a couple of reasons for these. A few of these are ALC kids who have graduated early, and so, of course, Margaret makes those connections too. And we do know that a couple of students have open enrolled, and for the most part, they have a connection with each of those kids that have moved, but there hasn't been anything, I would say, that is out of the ordinary as reasons why they're out.
Thank you.
And who contacts, for instance, the open enrollees?
Usually I do, and then if it's in the high school, then I'll give Jamie a call and we'll have a conversation as to why, who signed this. We'll call the parents. We'll try to deal as many people as we possibly can to see what the reasons are for it. But
Okay, any other questions? Moving on to gifts and donations, and two items tonight, and the first one will be gifts and donations by individual institutions or persons. First of all, the Faribault Booster Club, $759.50 for a Falcon logo stencil, and $245 to pay for the December product producer event worker. Lamplighters, $25. James Gorman, $50. Twin City Kids in Need Resource Center, school supplies for Jefferson Elementary, has a value of $6,600. Anonymous, 3 pair of snow pants and 2 pair of boots for Roosevelt students. Eleanor Grabeel, $27. Books for early childhood. Stefan and Tricia Gravel, $20, donation to purchase books for early childhood family ed. Helen Peterson, yarn for hats to be given to early childhood students, and Marie Yates, $25 to purchase yarn for same purpose. Minnesota State High School League, $3,688. It's a grant to assist our district in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by students in athletic and fine arts programs. And finally, St. Paul Children's Museum, $270 for 60 Jefferson kindergarten students to attend the museum, and $100 donation for the transportation for that field trip. We probably didn't have a motion to accept these, but is there one?
Mr. Chair, just let me ask you, and then you also have another one under gifts
Yeah,
and
a
donations?
second one coming
Okay.
up, okay.
You're gonna group them together or separate?
I'm flexible.
You fly with those resolutions pretty loose.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think that second list is in fact in the resolution.
well, I wondered about that.
Yeah, you
because
don't need to
The
do
dollar amount is the same, so I think this
It's
list is
just
the.
a grant.
Okay,
Yeah.
so number 10 is a check that we got from the Minnesota High School League. And this is for, well, I think I said that. Promoting participation
Yeah,
by
it's
high
fine.
school students in athletic fine arts programs. So, yeah, we'll consider that with these other ones because we already did. But is there a motion to approve these?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, you want me to read them again? I should. Okay, any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I'm really grateful that all of these people and organizations are supporting the schools. It's great to see.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
John Curry.
Aye.
Jason Engelbrecht.
Aye.
Yvette Marthaler.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway.
Aye.
Chad Wolf. Aye. Mr. Chair, passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next item will be technology report by Maria.
Good evening. I just have a few updates I'd like to share. In December, all of our digital learning coaches attended the TIES conference, and this is a large educational conference that many area school districts attend. And it's an opportunity to learn and see innovative technology ideas and resources and demonstrations that other schools are doing. And the coaches that attended will be presenting session topics from that conference at our staff development meeting on February 18th. Also, we have 2 Apple professional learning specialists on site for 2 days in our district. They will be delivering 2-hour block sessions also on our staff development day. And then they will be here on the 19th to work with 4 teams for half-day sessions in our district. And they'll work with the teams on the integration of technology by implementing with specific curriculum or specific unit that the teachers want to work with. And they'll help plan and develop and even co-teach with the teachers during the school day. So we're really excited about having those professionalists on board. Over the past month, we've been preparing and working with our office staff on the implementation of online registration. And this is part of our Infinite Campus SIS system. And it will move our student enrollment process from paper to an electronic format. It will streamline the enrollment process for parents from doing paperwork at each school site to have the option to do it all online. We'll be able to use the system also to send out informational updates to families to update our student database system for information. And we're going to be doing a soft rollout of this online registration during kindergarten roundup at the end of this month. And lastly, we'll be moving our staff email accounts this summer from Office 365 to Gmail. It gives us one platform in our district to support in regards to email. So Gmail is also what our students in grades 6 through 12 use. So it's just going to provide better integration with the G Suite platform. Email addresses will stay the same, but our tech department is already starting the planning stages to migrate the staff to the new email system. Any questions?
It's just a general, will people still have the option to do paper
For
registration?
the registration, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. We
Just
can
a
have
gen-
kiosks too at each site for
Oh.
parents.
okay.
Just a general comment. I can't tell you enough how grateful we are to Maria and her department. We very, very rarely have a hiccup in our, no, knock on wood, in our technology system. But they do a terrific job maintaining it and doing a lot of the things, not just in the background, but also in the foreground with some of the implementations that we've been, our teachers have been using this past year. So thanks, Maria, and your team.
Two things. Thank you for going to Gmail.
Yes, thank
I'm
you.
excited.
I'm super excited.
Solves a lot of my problems.
Yes, me too.
Secondly, I'm amazed at the quality of the phishing that's going on. The emails we get that look so official, and they're not. They had the school logo on there. They had Todd's name and address and everything on there. So I just urge everybody to be cautious and click on the sender's email and make sure it's coming from Faribault K-12, or you can cause some problems. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, it's strain on Apple to provide those 2 days. If they can afford it.
Rob, you jumped ahead of Anne Marie. That's all right. Stay. Take all the time you want.
Nicole is supposed to be up here next.
When I asked to be put on the agenda, I specifically said wherever, but as long as it's before Anne Marie. So, I didn't even notice she was sitting there. So, I wanted to talk today a little bit about our special education child count. For those of you keeping score, every December 1st, we submit to the Minnesota Department of Education the number of special education students who we serve in Faribault and who also are Faribault residents served by other districts. So the first page is an overall description of how many kids we have in our total child count. It's a 6-year trend just because I have data that goes back 6 years, and so I add it to the Excel graph. Last year, our child count was 717. This year, it's 710. And those are students whose parents live in Faribault, but who may be attending different districts for a number of reasons. We serve about 604, well, not about, we serve exactly 604 students as of December 1st. Our total child count represents about 11% of our student population. To give some perspective, our child count is 710. Northfield's child count is 636. Which is about 13% of their population, and Owatonna's is 866, which is, again, about 13% of their population. I did look up the state average, how many children with disabilities across the state, and the state average is 16%. I don't have any, I have some theories about why ours is 11% and not 16%, but I think that it's pretty accurate in regards to how many students that we have identified. I don't believe we're misidentifying or overly identifying kids. I think we take a good, honest look at every student who comes to us who may need special ed services and give an honest evaluation of where they're at. I have some
Rob,
opinions.
can I ask you quickly? Does these numbers include the, with SEVSEC?
Yes, so in the 710, they include the kids who, anybody whose parent, it's very specific. Parents who reside in Faribault, but it does not include charter school students. So any student enrolled in a charter school is not included on our child count because they have their own child count that they're responsible for, and those students are included in their child count. So students who are open enrolled in Northfield, in Owatonna, and Medford, those are included. Students who we have placed in other districts like SEVSEC or who are self-placed in different places around the state of Minnesota are included. Yes.
Are the academies in there too?
Yes, the Minnesota State Academies are included in the 710 as well. Right. So some of that is naturally there. We're never going to serve all 710 students just for the way special education is made up. Some of those students are naturally going to be out of our district.
And the percentage you you just said it, those are for the number of students or for the number of students served?
The number of students identified as special education
Is the percentage that
as a percentage of the general education population. So 11.7% of our students have been identified as special education
That's the
out of our
710.
total population.
Okay,
Yep. Okay, I'm supposed to be able to scroll, or am I? Not. So the second page of this is a breakup of our specific disability areas by our specific disability areas and how many students we have in each disability area. I put on there the child count for 2017 as well as the child count for 2018 in case you wanted to compare them. Overall, we're down about 11 students from last year as opposed to this year. Relatively speaking, I think that's right in the frame of reference where we should be based on our total enrollment of general education students. I think that special education actually retained more students than the general population. If you want if you want to go back more years, on board book for February 26, 2018, I go back the full 5 years on that, but I didn't think that you needed all those to add up. I'll point out some highlights. Overall, our biggest disability category that we have is learning disabilities with 26%. Next is developmental disabilities at 19%, and those are our early childhood students. Many of them are identified as having developmental disabilities. Third is speech and language impairment, that's 14%. And then emotional behavior disorders, autism, and other health disabilities round out the top 5 or the top 6 with about 10% each. These are very similar to the percentages that we had last year and for the last several years. We're not seeing a remarkable change like we had when autism was first identified as a disability area. On the third page, I have a breakout by building. So, and I did have room, so I put the last 4 years on here, but in case you're interested in seeing where the special education students are, where our greatest population is, we've been seeing a lot of growth the past 2 or 3 years at McKinley. That seems to have tapered off. Last year, McKinley had about 107. This year, they have 90. So it's tapered off a little bit. Everybody else is roughly the same with the exception of Lincoln. It seems like the early childhood students all went to Lincoln because they're up by 10 students. But you can look back and see for the past several years what buildings have the most special ed students. It's been pretty stable. We've had a bump that's moving up from the middle school and are close to being in the high school. And then the early childhood students that we've been gaining will start to come in our elementary schools within the next year or two. On the last, I know that there's been a lot of talk about charter schools. So on the last page, I put information about where the students in charter schools are. Now these students are not counted in our special education child count, but just for your information, overall, we counted them last year and we counted them this year, and the charter schools are down about 16 students overall. Most of that decline has been at the Discovery School and Near Strand. I don't have any speculation as to why. It's just it is what it is. So when we discuss decreases in child count and enrollment, it seems that in regards to special education, at least, the charter schools are seeing a decline as well for whatever reason. So I can't say that the decrease in the 9 special education students between this year and last year is because they went to the charter schools, because it doesn't appear that they did. Any questions about the child counts or these documents that I've shared with you? I always err on the side of give you more numbers than you need just in case you want to know. Finally, I want to give a plug for an event that we're sponsoring tomorrow night. We've invited Pacer to come down and are hosting a transition workshop. It's for parents of students who are high school age and or just graduated high school, of students who have been identified with disabilities, and they may be wondering about what's next, what's after high school, what kinds of services are located in the community for students with disabilities once they graduate or once they exit high school. So they do their seminar in 2 parts. They'll have the parents in one room. We'll put the divider up. They'll have the parents in one room and talk about the nitty-gritty kinds of things, how to enroll in Social Security, what kinds of things are out there as far as work study things. And then they'll have the students in another room to talk about budgeting, how to budget your money, how to look at your paycheck and figure out where you're gonna live and some kind of nitty-gritty things. That's tomorrow night from 6 to 8 in the Falcon Room. And we do have plenty of room. And so if you haven't registered, and I'm talking maybe to the TV audience because I don't know if any of you would register, but if you haven't registered, you can just show up tomorrow between 6 and 8 here, at 6 and 8 at night here at the Falcon Room. We'll have cookies and we'll have a good presentation by Pacer. So,
Is there any cost?
There is no cost. It's free. So I'll turn the floor over to Anne Marie now.
Great, thank you.
I think I can mention this, but Rob is currently teaching for an esteemed university, the St. Mary's University. He's teaching courses to students that are going to become special ed directors. So thank you for representing us and helping train the next generation.
That is
Yes,
nice of
welcome.
my colleague, isn't it? Welcome, new board members. It's so nice to be here with you guys. I'll start with the wellness report. And we voted last time, yeah, you did not log your steps.
I know it.
So we're on the step challenge through Daily Endorphin, and Yvette promised that she would become a member for the district office, which currently, breaking news, let me tell you where we're at here. Nope, wrong thing. Here. So all buildings are participating in the step challenge. The district office is in 6th place. And the reason why we're even that high is because Barbudo has run, 700,000 steps in the last 5 weeks. I don't know how she does it. But Roosevelt, yes, they're in 1st place, if anyone's listening from Roosevelt. And then Jefferson, anyway. So, that was part of my wellness report. The other part is we voted last time to promote the Riverbend Nature Center Maple Syrup Fun Run. So, and it's a pancake breakfast. So that'll be happening on Saturday, May 4th. And a partnership between us and the Riverbend Nature Center has allowed us to receive a 50% off discount on race entry fees. So, for the district will contribute $15 toward that as well. So if you want any district employee wanting to run the 5K, it'll be only $5 to register. 10K, $7.50. 25K, $12.50. And Todd, this one's for you. 50K.
That would be Yvette.
Yvette, I'm sorry.
That would be Barb.
$20. If someone really wants to pay $20 to run that far, please do.
Can I do the virtual 50K?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you and me. That gives you the running part, but the better part to me is the pancake brunch. So that is also included in that. That's all I have for wellness.
I would just say thank you. Matt joined our
Yes.
wellness committee recently, and I'm guessing he contacted the Nature Center. And
He did.
Yes, thank you for doing that.
Yep. And through Community Ed, we'll do a little Couch to 5K class as well to get any of those folks who want to gear up toward any of those options for running. We'll have that chance. So
Staff will be getting an email this week with all the details.
staff will be getting an email this week. So there you go. Okay. That's it.
Okay, any questions? Community Ed?
Okay, so a couple of quick notes about 2 grant awards we received. One was from the UCare Foundation. They provided us $25,000 to further continue our family engagement efforts. So what will happen is a training will be developed through some staff and through a person that will be working with, based off of the guru of family, school, and community partnerships, Joyce Epstein. So she's the real guru around family engagement. So the training will be practiced this spring and then really implemented next year. So 2019, 2020 is really when we'll see more of the implementation side of that training. So anybody who wants to provide feedback, please contact me on that. And the second piece of good news is that we received close to $20,000 from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, and that's to cover any early childhood programming that we deliver at the community school. So the 21st Century Grant that covers the community school cost does not cover pre-K services, so that will help us do some meaningful early childhood programming for any parent that wants to come and do Zumba and drop their 4-year-old off. We will have that option for them. So we're intending it to reach a little wider audience for our evening programming for parents and community members. So that's it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, that grant, I have one quick question.
Yep.
Is that just for a year? I'm not just, but it's a year, and then
For the UCare or the Smith?
the Smith.
Just the year.
But we can see how it is and contemplate
Yes.
additional service. That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the idea, just to continue that thought that Yvette has, is to double back and partner more closely with early childhood family ed, which we have also as in our McKinley programming, and see if we can kind of make that more of a sustainable piece of the community school portion. So, yep.
I understand
Yeah.
community school has
Yes.
had a lot more success on
Yes.
attracting participants
Yeah,
this
a
year.
lot more.
When can that be part of your report?
That's a great, Todd has wanted that to be a work session at some point, so we can talk about when we'd like to offer that.
Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Have you guys, two things, have you seen the article in which?
It was the fleur-de-lis.
Yeah, have you seen that article yet? I'll bring that.
Oh.
I've got it in my office, but it talks about how successful the community school's been. It's a terrific article, thanks to, actually Misty was
Yeah,
responsible for doing that. It's a great article. And Anne-Marie is part of that with that community school. And the second thing is too, just to give kudos for Anne-Marie, how far are you in your PhD program?
Oh, well,
I'm not gonna say what school she's going to,
no,
but she is
please
involved.
don't, because I know that'll offend virtually everyone on the board. So I am a year and a half into it, and supposedly I'll be defending spring of 2020. So this is gonna be exciting, yeah. It's been a marathon of my own.
Yes.
And no one's paying me
You
to.
can count the
Can I get
steps.
50%? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Kane, facilities.
We're not gonna
Do we
go
give a
over all
raise for that? Is that?
Not gonna go over all the, what was that one report they gave? We went over every.
I'll try to make it painless. Basically, on the facility committees, we went over this year's LTFM projects. Just kind of explained if something went over budget, under budget. I'm happy to say there's only 3 projects left to wrap up, and then I can close the chapter on this year's LTFM and start concentrating on next summer's. So we did go over some projects for next summer. Unfortunately, things changed. Had to switch directions a little bit because we ran into a little snag. We were planning on doing cooling in the auto shops and wood shops area, but we had to go back and do some redesigning after meeting with Jamie and the staff. I think we got a good solution. The only bad part is it's got to get pushed back a year to make it happen. Otherwise, it'd be too tight of a window to try to complete. So with that, I think we're going to do all the fire alarms this summer and try to get them all up to speed, up to code. We should be able to complete that fairly easy this summer and maybe drag it a little bit into June, but we should be able to complete that. Talked a little bit about the middle school multi-purpose room. That's going to get updated a little bit. We're planning on putting a kind of a synthetic turf carpet down on the floor in that area, and find a place where we can roll up our wrestling mats to get them off the floor. Right now it's causing some issues with the floor with some, it's a little damp because it's not breathing with the wrestling mats always being down, so we got to find a way to get them rolled up and out of the way. Middle school auditorium, we're looking at doing some major remodeling in that. Replacing all the auditorium seating. We'll be replacing the curtains. The dimmer rack system is on its last leg, so we're replacing all that. Hoping to switch to LED lights in that. With the seats coming out, I'd like to look at replacing flooring as well. That's the ideal time to replace any kind of flooring in that area. And just a lot of painting and hopefully some flooring district-wide to kind of spruce things up a little bit. So it'll be a busy summer. Now you guys added parking lots, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any broken water pipes last week?
We did have one. I think we jinxed ourselves when we talked at the city meeting. We were doing really well, but yes, we did have one at the high school. I actually found out about it after they had it fixed. So. But it didn't sound like the water was down for too long, maybe 30 minutes or so.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kate.
Next item will be the policy committee. There's no report, but there are 5 policies. Then this is action, so these have been presented to the board previously.
Yeah, in December.
Now they're for action. We'll lump them together, but you will have a chance to discuss each of them after we hear if there's a motion to approve.
I move to approve the 6 policies listed, 603, 615, 616, 618, and 620. That's 5, sorry.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now discussion, and at this point we could pull one out or leave it in, or but any discussion on any of these items? I think Carolyn and Courtney are the policy committee members.
I've spoken with Todd and Ryan and looked at these. I understand the majority of the policy changes are all word changes or changes in legislature that require a word change or changes in the back of the policies in terms of the references, and that they aren't major changes to any of the policies.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Item 9, other matters, consideration approval agreement of local number 70 for operating engineers and the school district. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Item B, consider approval of the agreement with IUOE Local Number 70 for cultural liaisons and the district. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I guess I would, Mr. Chair, I would just like to say I appreciate the staff working with Nicole to come to these agreements. I think there was considerable work done to accommodate our parameters that we set for the agreements, and so it's greatly appreciated by me.
Okay. Any additional comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Items of information, our student representative.
Hello, I'm Kevin Tovar for the new board members. So at the high school, the winter sports are gearing to end soon with their Big 9 and section competitions coming up. Girls basketball stands 13-12, boys basketball 6-8, girls hockey 17-5, boys hockey 6-2, gymnastics 1-6, boys swim and dive 0-2. The Emeralds are the Big 9 champions in kick and jazz, and wrestling is 3-1. Some other activities would be theater, recently having put on their children's theater play for the elementary students. This past Saturday, the science team competed at their regional event, taking 5th place overall and heading to state. They took 1st place in Boomalever, 1st place in Mousetrap, 2nd place in Mission Possible, and 3rd place in Forensics. For the band, they have their winter concert tonight. They also, all the music programs participated in the solo ensemble contest at Lakeville South in January, earning multiple excellent and superior ratings. Some other stuff going on at the high school is we recently started the task force for the building bond. There's about 10 or 12 students involved. I don't know if Mr. Sesker wanted to say more on that, but.
Sure, we just really started, our meeting got canceled because of weather last week, surprise, surprise. So we're busy scheduling another meeting, and as Kevin said, we have 12 students that are very interested in learning a little bit more about what this is all about and helping us out with anything that we may need to in the future. So.
Okay. Thank you. Board member reports?
Mr. Chair, I'll just say that Keith Badger brought forward, our activities director brought forward a leadership opportunity that the Booster Club is going to be paying for, and it's leadership training for high school students that starts in March. And I know he's busy getting coordinators and teachers and coaches to be involved in that. And then we are also sponsoring a co-sponsoring with the American Red Cross a blood drive on March 5th at the FEC. And we have 2 new board members that are joining us, Cassie Onstead and Carrie Vandermeet. So we're pretty excited about those 2 additions.
Okay, other board members?
So I'll mention that the robotics team is in full swing right now, and I'm going to shamelessly plug that our fundraiser is selling car wash cards. And normally I would plug those for my own family because there's a friendly competition of the team for who sells the most. But Kevin is also on the team, and so if you would like to support the team and help Kevin win the scale model and get to eat ice cream in front of the other students, please direct your willingness to purchase them from Kevin. That'd be awesome.
So, Kevin, my recommendation is hustle to that door, and everybody's got to go out that door before we hit everybody.
Kevin is now dismissed from the meeting. He'll be at the door as you leave.
Okay, I'll mention just a couple of things. Several of you were at the Minnesota State School Board Association. John, Carolyn, Courtney, Jason. And I saw you there as I attended the luncheon, which was the only event I attended. I did have other things going on, but it was nice to see you there. Thank you for that. On Saturday, I attended, along with Superintendent Sesker, the Southeast Minnesota Legislative Forum. And 8 legislators from southeastern Minnesota attended, and our senator and our representative were invited, but were unable to attend. But it ranged from across the southern part of the state, and the Superintendent's Association, this is their organization and what they set up. And Superintendent Sesker was asked by his colleagues to present information concerning not only for the Faribault district, but all districts and some of the issues that we face. And I don't know if you were going to talk about this, but I'll just briefly mention. Superintendent Sesker shared with them, and this is probably a pretty close number statewide, that the average cross-subsidy for special education is about $850, a little bit more. And that means for every student that we have in our district and the funds we receive from them, we take $850 and use that to fund the special ed that's not being funded appropriately by both the state and the federal government. And the superintendents and school board members that I attend presented that as a large issue. Our levy, voter approved levy is $750?
Yeah.
$750. That doesn't cover the cross subsidy. And when you think about that, and you think that, and Superintendent Sesker gave a couple examples, but there are districts that have voter-approved levies of $1,100 more than ours it gives you an idea of two things. The fact that they're not using as much of that levy to support special education. And don't get me wrong, it's not, we need to spend that money to educate those students. That's not the issue. But when you have $1,100 more per student coming in, so for this district to be well over $4 million each year to support our causes, you know what a difference that is and what an issue we have with inequity in school funding dependent on your zip code. Because the amount of money that you can raise in this district compared to other districts because of the property wealth comparisons is a vastly unfair system. So the impact on our voters of a certain dollar amount on an average home, and the same price home in other districts, is 1/3 or 1/4 the impact of others. In other words, other districts, their taxes, their tax increase would be 1/4 of what it takes our voters for the same amount of money. And that is an issue, it remains an issue. Schools for Equity and Education address that. But I'd like to thank Superintendent Sesker for representing us so well at that meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing, board, we are thinking that we should have a retreat. Nothing exotic, but a meeting room someplace in the district. And I've already suggested a date, and I've already heard for one person that maybe not is going to work. So if it's agreeable that we do have a retreat, we'll probably assign Kathy to find a time and a place where we can do that. Okay, so be aware of that. Thank you.
My turn? Okay. So, I have weather. That was one big issue that we've had. Garrett and I have worked together. Keen is also on our calling list, and of course we call the area superintendents and check the weather. Today, it was slick, but Garrett and I, in our conversations, all of our buses outside of one smaller bus we were all on time. And likewise, after school, I just got done talking to Garrett today, and again, a little bit slower, but they all made it back safely, but it was a little bit slippery out there, so be careful when you're driving home. I was at the MSBA conference with our new board members and a couple others, and I thought we had a great time. We were able to find some time together and visit. We also, with Sodexo, and, oh, she just left. Brenda Boehm, our director at Sodexo, and a couple others actually presented, Heidi was there, and Sam, about the one size does not fit all. And we talked about equity versus equality, and I thought it went pretty well. And Sodexo was a huge help in that whole process. Attended Martin Luther King Day for a little while at South Central College, then I started not feeling so well, then I had to cut out. We had a meeting at Nerstrand to talk about our facilities and what their thoughts were about our facilities. Had a nice turnout over there. We received some good suggestions on what we can also include. Also met with the city, and I know John and Chad were there at the city council meeting it was their work session to talk a little bit about the facilities. It's the second meeting that we've had with the city of Faribault, and they've been very, very good about listening and giving us some feedback about what to do as we move forward with a potential bond. Big Nine Superintendent meeting was last week in Owatonna, and it's always a good chance to talk with the Big Nine Soups and what they are all doing. KDHL was on last Wednesday. I don't know if any of you heard, but I was on it. Visiting classrooms, high school, all the schools. I try to get around as much as I can. I did miss the ALC last week, but I have hit most of the buildings again to try to get in those classrooms, see all the great things our staff are doing and our principals. And then finally, the legislative meeting, as John indicated, I was down there with our presentation. It was about a 4-hour presentation from various superintendents. My piece was to talk about renewing operating levies and having the school board do that and not have to go out to the voters. Number one, it costs a ton of money to do that for special elections. Another reason is there's not always a great turnout for those. We would like the legislature to give us some more local control on whether or not levies being renewed, and that was something we've talked about. We also talked about my piece was to talk about how do we figure out the cross subsidy that John was talking about, and one of the things that the superintendent from Chatfield and I suggested as a solution was to allow districts to levy, if they choose, up to 50% of that cross subsidy. If you think about it, our cross-subsidy right now is about $3.5 million, $3.3 million. And by doing half of that, that raises $1.56 million, which is almost the amount of money that we're raising with our current operating levy.
Is that a board-approved levy?
That's a board-approved levy. That was the idea. I don't know how warm the legislators were up there with that whole thing, but it's at least a solution. They have to figure out something for this cross-subsidy because it's just going out of control. The great operating levy that this board and the community supported in 2013, virtually 100% of that now is going to the cross-subsidy. And so it puts us in a bind, and as a result, we're going to have to do some things this spring. So that's all I have. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
I'd just add one. Mark Matuska, the superintendent in Casson, was emceeing, and the legislators asked him what the impact of the bullying legislation has been. And, you know, he said, you know, good things in terms of that. He said one of the things that really helped was to define bullying. And the fact bullying is a repeated series of incidents designed to cause harm or to hurt or to insult a person. And so one day he was on the playground, and I don't know if there was some shoving or whatever it was, but the one student said to the other one, "That's bullying." And the other student said, "No, that was an isolated incident." So the word is out. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I do have a question. There was some Facebook conversation around the facilities task force survey that was taken throughout the community. Has that been concluded yet?
It has not been concluded, but they've got to be getting close because they want to present that next Monday at that board meeting. But I have not heard from Springstead if that has concluded yet.
So
Yep.
if anyone is still getting phone
Yep,
calls
still
from the
taking.
public, we would appreciate if they would
Yep, you
participate.
bet.
Okay, now is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It carries. No one's opposed.